Greetings, MBAP 516 Organizational Leadership and Behavior students. Dr. Jaros again with another video introduction to a set of readings. This is the last set of readings of the semester. I'm sure that breaks everyone's heart. I'm sure you guys were looking forward to maybe 4 or 5 more weeks of readings, especially out of the COOT book, which I hear is a student favorite. Anyway, sarcasm aside, we are at the end of the semester, and I've assigned 2 readings that address the issue of kind of, the basics. What is an organization? What is an organization? We all have common sense understandings of what organizations are, and those beliefs do tell us something about what organizations are. But here we have readings by Katz and Kahn and Thompson, 2 scientists who, try to take a deep dive into the concept of an organization. And that's helpful because even though these readings might strike you as rather abstract and maybe theoretical, all of us hope to work as managers in organizations, or if we already are working as managers in organizations, we want to rise up the hierarchy to levels of greater responsibility and authority and power and prestige. And in order to do that, it helps to understand what it actually is that you are trying to manage and lead. And that's what Katz and Kahn and Thompson are talking about in their own way. First, let's think about the Katz and Kahn article, Organizations and the Systems Concept. Katz and Kahn come at the problem of what an organization is from a kind of general social science perspective. Katz and Kahn were not practicing managers, and they were not scientists who focused specifically on leadership and organizational behavior. They were social scientists, with more of a sociological bent. In this case, that's helpful to us because it means that they discard some of the common sense ideas that we have about organizations and kind of strip things down to the basics for us. The first point they try to make in their article is, appearances can be deceiving. We can't necessarily rely on what our senses, including our common sense, tells us about what an organization is, because our senses don't always tell the tale. If we think about science and other domains, if you walk outside and look up at the sky, our senses tell us that the sun, appears to be revolving around the earth, when in fact what's really happening is the earth is revolving around the sun. So Katz and Kahn argue that if we rely on strictly common sense notions of what organizations are, we might make that same kind of mistake. Katz and Kahn focus heavily on the concept of an organization as being an open system. If you want to know what organizations are, it's helpful to understand what an open system is. An open system is any kind of system that has basically 3 components to it. There's the core of the system, the organization itself, where work gets done. And then on either end of the organization, there are input acquisition processes and output disposal processes. So an organization is essentially an input process output system. For an organization to survive, it has to be able to acquire inputs from the environment, meaning resources like money, supplies, materials, human assets, financial assets. Then it has to have the ability to convert those resources into a product or a service. We could be talking about hamburgers or video games or NBA basketball games or any product or service you can think of. The organization has to be able to produce something of value. And then it has to be able to realize that value in a market. It has to be able to dispose of those products or services. But by dispose, we don't mean, throw them out. That would mean we're wasting money. We have to be able to sell them. We have to be able to market them. And then if we're able to sell our products or services, that generates the money that we can then use as an input to keep the system going. So the point Katz and Kahn are really trying to make is that managers should not have a closed system perspective on the work they do. And sometimes, particularly for managers that are kind of buried deep inside the organization, that never really interact with customers or suppliers or government regulators, it's easy to kind of slip into the mindset that your organization is, a self-contained world. And that doesn't really, and that what happens outside of it doesn't matter much. In fact, what happens outside the organization is crucial. We're seeing that right now with the COVID-19 virus. A lot of hospitals are warning that, they will soon be unable to properly care for COVID-19 patients if they don't get more surgical masks or surgical gowns or particularly ventilators. Right? Because hospitals don't make those things themselves. They require other organizations to make those kinds of things so that they can acquire them as inputs to their process, which is the process of taking care of patients and hopefully helping them to recover from the disease. Next, we have the reading by Thompson. Thompson appreciates Katz and Kahn's work, but he makes one modification to it. He agrees that organizations are fundamentally open systems. They do have to acquire inputs, and they do have to successfully dispose of outputs. But Thompson argues that for certain parts of the organization, it does make sense for managers to pretend that the organization is in fact a closed system. Thompson talks about organizations as having 3 levels or components as well. He calls these the technical, the managerial, and the institutional levels. Right? The technical level of an organization is where the product or service is made. So for a company like Ford that makes cars, the technical system would be composed of all the factories where the cars are actually made. Right? Then there's the managerial subsystem. The managerial subsystem consists of all the support staff and lower and middle level managers who aid the technical core in the production of products and services. It's the job of the managerial subsystem to acquire inputs for the technical core and to dispose of its outputs. Last but not least, there's the institutional level. This is the level where the organization interacts with the broader social environment. It's important, according to Thompson, for an organization to maintain its standing in the community. An organization that loses the respect of the community, meaning of customers, of government regulators, of the public at large, loses a lot of goodwill, and that can cause the company to go out of business. So it's important that an organization maintains good relations with other institutional entities like the government and customers and the community. That's the job of spokespeople and top management. So for example, if an executive of a company is called to testify before Congress, when the executive is testifying before Congress, he or she is playing this kind of institutional role. Thompson does spend a lot of time talking about the technical subsystem, and I think you should pay attention to that. I said a few moments ago that Thompson largely agreed with Katz and Kahn. The one area where he kind of disagrees pertains to the technical subsystem. Thompson argues that for a technical subsystem to run rationally and efficiently, it has to be run as if it is in fact a closed system. Rational and efficient are important concepts for any organization. Organizations that aren't rational and efficient tend to produce products and services that are either faulty in a quality sense and too costly in a monetary sense. And therefore, these companies don't tend to last very long. So in order for the technical system to operate rationally, meaning, to get the job done, okay, and efficiently, meaning, in a general sense, in a low-cost manner, it has to be able to operate in a consistent manner. Disruptions to the technical core, like, for example, when a shortage of supplies means that a company has to shut down a factory temporarily, or when a shortage of ventilators causes a hospital to not be able to treat its patients, okay, then the technical core isn't performing well. So to the extent possible, what managers have to do is try to create conditions that isolate the technical core from the turbulences and uncertainties of the outside environment. And Thompson discusses some of the techniques that can be done to do this. He uses terms like smoothing and buffering and rationing. So you want to make sure you understand those concepts as well. Anyway, I hope this video introduction has been insightful. I hope everyone is taking care of themselves, staying safe, doing what you can to avoid, the COVID-19 virus, which to my knowledge, means basically staying indoors, self-isolating as much as possible, using delivery services and pickup, to acquire groceries and other items. I'm trying to avoid wandering around in grocery stores and department stores and things like that. That's where you come into contact with other people. Anyway, I'll stop talking about that. Just hope everyone is doing well.